So yesterday I got a new comment on my Letterboxd review of The Irishman. And this is by far my most controversial review. I've gotten dozens of comments that are very angry or attacking me because of it. I think it's been shared on a subreddit too that they didn't like it. And in general, I try to spread positivity and creativity online, and you usually as a creator just have to stomach the annoying comments. And I really like Letterboxd, but I see why a lot of big creators on there eventually just mute their comments because, people on a website about opinions are going to be very opinionated and defensive about those opinions. But I'll read my review quickly and then get into how I feel about it a couple years later, and also and some of the responses and stuff. But I said, $175 million. That's how much The Irishman cost to make. What does that amount of money even mean? And what does it mean when one of the supposed premier examples of the medium's artistic expression from the year cost $175 million? All in pursuit of what? Recognizable faces, recognizable icons, technical polish. It's bad enough that it's become accepted that a budget is the first step in this medium. People seem excited to pretend you need money, and lots of it, to make a film. And it's bad enough people are dumb enough to call $1 million film low budget. The industry thrives on this gatekeepery mentality that its willful grunts are beyond happy to peddle. The only thing I can glean from this film is that it is perhaps the shining example of the pretentious, self-centered egoism that is the industry. At least Marvel movies don't guise themselves as something artistically important. This movie has no purpose other than to serve itself and to please its investors, not unlike everything else being shat out by the industry. This just happens to be the most egregious example I've seen yet. $175 million. If I showed you a painting and then told you it cost that much, you'd fucking laugh. No matter how good the painting was, you definitely wonder why make a painting for $175 million when so many people are doing so much better for free. Martin Scorsese has made a big, bloated load of nothing. So yeah, not a very nice review. I gave it 1 out of 5 stars. I just did not enjoy it at the time, and it felt very emblematic of a lot of issues I'd take with Hollywood filmmaking and big budget filmmaking. And I went on to elaborate in a much longer comment, a comment that a lot of people ignored, but I'll paraphrase the comment here. I think The Irishman, if you look at it, is a film that's supposed to be about fading icons and the loss of glory and demystifying and deglorifying this mob life, and comparing that to Scorsese's aging and his loss of glory, or perceived loss of glory, and it's definitely like a retrospective on his career and taking a very quiet, meditative look at that through this Jimmy Hoffa story. And to me, it just didn't connect because, first and foremost, the CGI is really bad. And, it's like they tried de-aging and it just does not look right. Everyone looks so glossy and not right. And they, people joke about how Robert De Niro moves like an old man in that one scene. But I just think, in general, the CGI is so distracting. And whenever I'm seeing the CGI, I'm being reminded of the ludicrous amounts of money this movie cost, which is $175 million according to some sources, but others put it as high as $225 million. And I know a big part of that is that Scorsese didn't like the initial results, so they kept doing more CGI tests. And it just feels overworked. And I feel like the CGI and the need to de-age these faces kind of held the film back a lot from a filmmaking perspective, because so many of the scenes are just reverse shot dialogue that fail to be expressive or communicate something deeper about these characters, because they're so concerned with framing and lighting them in a way where the characters can be de-aged easily. And being reminded of that money, it kind of calls into question this whole icon theme. Because if your movie, the movie ends with Robert De Niro, spoilers, alone in a nursing home, And firstly, I can't believe how he castrates his last shot. He has this actually really good last shot, wide shot outside the door, Robert De Niro far away, and I was like, oh, this is actually a great last shot. And then it cuts into a close-up for some reason. And then I think it cuts back, and I'm like, we didn't need the close, like, stay outside the door, let us like leave him, show how alone he is. Regardless, the movie's about these fading icons. And the problem with that is Scorsese cashed a $20 million check on this movie. The sources I looked up show that Pacino, Pesci, De Niro all probably got at least 10 to 15 million. So the parallel is just not there, and it feels so ironic because you can't make a movie about fading icons with all buy-in about like starring the most iconic men in movie history and then proving that Hollywood is still willing to throw all this money at them. Kind of undercuts this message of being alone and dying alone and old and without your former glory. If you're still cashing $15 million, $20 million checks in your 70s and 80s, it just seems such at odds with itself. And when I'm seeing this bad CGI and I'm seeing this like caked on plastic look on the actors, I'm just being reminded of the money. And then when I'm being reminded of the money, I'm being pulled out of the themes of this story, because in real life, these icons aren't forgotten. And in real life, you know, even Jimmy Hoffa and these other like real life characters aren't forgotten because they're making a $225 million movie about them. So maybe there's a sadness in them feeling like they died alone or feeling like they've lost their glory, but the glory lives on through the telling of this story, even if it's a cautionary tale. And you know, I just don't think it's that bold. People say it's like Scorsese stepping back and finally like denouncing this mob thing, but it's like Goodfellas was not pro-mob. It glorifies it until it doesn't, and then the last act he's crazy and he's being tracked down and his life falls apart. You know, all of his movies kind of eventually denounce the exuberance of their characters, their lifestyle they lead. You know, Wolf of Wall Street is not saying to be a stockbroker. It's showing how that life can be hollow and repetitive and cyclical, and it could destroy you and eat you. And I just don't think The Irishman was doing anything that new by being this demystified, de-glorified mob movie, because I felt like Scorsese's mob movies were already that. They were just in a little more entertaining of a package, I guess. So that leads me to some of the responses to my review, and I wish most of them would read the 4-paragraph comment I elaborated on, because I think it breaks it down a little more, but a lot of them just read the review and jump right to reactionary. But you got some stuff like, this is the stupidest shit I've ever seen, what the fuck, LOL. Joel, I love your YouTube sketches, but your reviews are just bad. It's just so short-sighted and insufferably opinionated. I don't want to be too salty, but you call a review insufferably opinionated. This is one of the funniest things I've ever seen, because isn't that the point? Aren't you supposed to share your opinions? You'll never be able to make an actually decent film if you push this kind of pathetic philosophy to this extreme. Well, surprise, surprise, I already made many decent films. I love my movies, and it's weird to take these pop shots at me just because I've attacked Scorsese. I feel like some people have this weird thing where they have to defend these millionaires. It's like, well, they're not gonna see your comment. But insufferably opinionated, my review was. Motherfucker is acting like he spent $175 million. When you start a review whining about the budget, it's evidence that anything have nothing productive to say. So many clowns on this app. I mean, no disrespect, but like, I don't think he said a single thing about the film itself. I love your videos, dude, but you got really bad take on movies. I love this thing where people will see one hot take. Like, so many of my movie reviews are so positive and come from a place of utmost love and reverence for cinema. And if people see one or two bad takes they disagree with, they're like, this guy's got, all of his reviews are trash. People are so absolutist and so generalizing with stuff like that. Like, I know Roger Ebert gets a lot of shit for giving like Clockwork Orange or Fight Club really low reviews. And I've definitely seen that sentiment about Roger Ebert, that somehow a couple bad takes or hot takes nullify his entire career. What? Spider-Man 2 had a higher budget than that and you rated it 5 stars. If you want to be extreme, you could at least be consistent. I think this comment's completely missing the point. I'm not denouncing that any movie ever should not cost this much money. I'm saying that it seems hypocritical for Scorsese to come out so vehemently against superhero movies and then spend the exact same amount of money on an equally bloated, star-studded, expensive picture, and one that arguably should not cost that much. You see Spider-Man 2 and you're like, wow, that takes a lot of effects and props and sets and people to make. And you know, The Irishman is 3.5 hours, but it's mostly shot reverse shots, 2 actors in a hotel, 2 actors in a restaurant. It's not very intensive budget-wise, so it just feels so bloated. And then you find out that each of them cashed giant paychecks. Budget is not inherently a bad thing. I'm not saying that like budget is evil, because of course budget just means people are getting paid. And in an ideal world, that would be a good thing. Ideally, this 175 million, 225 million, whatever it was, would be going directly to the de-aging special effects artist who probably put years into this movie, years and years time total. And but no, that's not what happens. Like I said, like 100 million of the budget just went to the big names, went to Scorsese himself. And that just doesn't feel like risky filmmaking. It doesn't, no matter what you do in the film, if you have a guaranteed $20 million, $10 million check, you're not the same renegade you once were. You know, Scorsese used to challenge the conventions. His content of his films, Taxi Driver, was about these anti-heroes. It was very challenging for the time, and he was challenging convention and forms and morality and stuff like that. And nowadays, he's doing it from an ivory tower, and it just feels less interesting. It feels less risky. You know, there was movies in Scorsese's career early on that were risk because he didn't have a guaranteed thing. Now he's a legacy director who will never go bankrupt, never be told he can't work again, because he's Scorsese, and De Niro's De Niro, and Pacino's Pacino. And to me, like, there's just so many things about the process and creation of The Irishman that make it disingenuous and make it uninteresting, that regardless of the content, and I was talking about the content too, despite what these comments say, but regardless of the content, it's just so uninteresting to me as a movie to be made in 2020. It just reads to me as such a old world movie, using new technology in very unexciting ways. Like, I don't need to see 40-year-old De Niro. I don't need to see 40-year-old Pesci. You know, like, new technology has enabled filmmaking to be so much freer, so much less expensive, so much bolder and interesting, like shooting on iPhones, using all this technology to uplift and change and create new things, not using this technology to just make De Niro young again and have this nostalgia trip. I feel like it's such a short-sighted, uninteresting use of modern technology that just distracts ultimately, and it just costs a lot of money. And yeah, I don't know. This review is one that haunts me a little bit, and I still agree with it completely. I don't think The Irishman is a very good movie. I don't think, and this is of course my opinion. If you love The Irishman, if you think it's great, that's perfectly valid. But my opinion is this, and I'm happy to share my opinions. I'd like to see more reviewers that actually like challenge people and bring up interesting points. It's almost like all these people would have been happy if I just said, Scorsese has done it again, another masterpiece, and then they would have been like, amen, brother. Like, people just want to see their opinion and regurgitate it at them. They don't want to see something that challenges the status quo, as if me taking this angle on the movie isn't far more interesting than if I just said, like, even if I didn't like it, if I just said like bad movie, not good cinematography, they'd be happier than me calling into question the practice of making these ludicrous, expensive movies. But I digress. Sometimes it's nice to be a little frustrated. I won't mute my comments on Letterboxd yet. I don't get anything that bad. And like I said, most of my reviews are fairly agreeable and interesting to people. I don't think I do too many liquid hot takes. I don't know what liquid hot, lava is liquid hot. Anyways, I hope this was a good video. I love you guys. I love movies. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.